Have you ever been in a leadership position or management position where you had to make a critical decision and take emotion out of it? I remember for me, one of the first times that happened was when I was the commander at Palmdale. I was dealing with a lot of contractors, and there was one in particular who was very egotistical, thought they knew everything. No one else's opinion really mattered because theirs was the right way. And quite frankly, this person's personality grated my nerves on a daily basis. But one day, this person was coming back from a flight, and they made a critical error in judgment, which almost resulted in a mishap. Thank goodness there were some checks and balances in place, but it could have occurred, and it could have occurred on my watch. And I watched these events, and I saw it, and I was like, wow. So once the aircraft landed safely, I went into my office for about 15 minutes. And in those 15 minutes, the first thing I did, most of that 15 minutes, I had to disassociate my feelings about that individual on a personal level from the events that just happened. Because I knew as a commander, I had to make a decision. And it could be administrative in nature, and that decision could have affected that individual's career, period. And I did not want to let any personal bias that I had of that person to affect my judgment. And then once I got to meet that individual, we talked for another half an hour, and I decided that there would not be any administrative paperwork being done, that we're going to discuss it in a huge forum with engineers, other pilots, and we're going to make this a lesson learned. You don't bury wounded soldiers. People make mistakes. I learned that a lot in the Navy. When you make a mistake, especially in the flight community, you learn from it, you may get a call sign out of it, you teach other people not to do it, and then we move on from there. In other parts of the military, may be less forgiving. And so, with that is what I decided to do. There's a critical decision that's going to affect an individual, maybe the organization. Can you take away all the emotion that's required to make that decision about that individual if you know them on a more personal basis? And I think most of us will say yes. And some of us may say, I may struggle with that. And that's an honest answer. And if you're one of those people who are going to struggle, then maybe you need some outside external forces to help you make those decisions. And you know what I'm going to say. There's one definitely that will help you, and that's Blue EQ. They provide assessments. They can assess you in 5 different categories, over 25 different categories, to let you know how maybe observant you are, how empathetic, how mindful, how impulsive. And they can give you tools right away to help you mitigate those challenges when they're presented to you. And you get to know yourself better. You get to walk around with an actual indication of what's happening. So when you go into a situation, you know how you're going to react, and you could do things and you can make decisions that counteract that. So what are you waiting for? Look, that individual, we still had a great professional relationship. That person still grated my nerves, but they were a little more humble after that event. And they were a good pilot. So, that's all I got. Just keep that in mind. When you're making critical decisions, take the emotion out of it. Look at the facts for what they are, and then make the decision. Have a great day.